The Warriors maybe made a huge mistake not trading for Paul George. Now we've got details. A trade was on the table. The Warriors could have gotten it done and landed Paul George in Golden State should they have pulled the trigger. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel as we continue to grow. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, Paul George, Golden State Warriors, he would have been a great fit up there.
Absolutely. PG is the type of guy with his skill set. I think you could plug into any team and he would just make them better. So that definitely would have been an interesting player for them to try to pick up, depending on what it would cost them. But, you know, maybe they made the right decision. Maybe they didn't. I guess we're going to discuss that today.
Well, here's what the deal would have been. Okay. According to Ohm over at ESPN, the Clippers were willing to make a deal with their division rival, according to sources, but were looking for something of value to help restock their asset cupboard if they were going to take back an undesirable contract and be in the second apron. So that right there is key. We'll talk about that in a minute. Swapping George for Andrew Wiggins, who has 3 years and $85 million left on a 4-year, $109 million deal, plus other salaries to make the math work, would have been acceptable only if the Clippers received a young player like Jonathan Kuminga or Brandon Podziemski and a pick or two. Okay, so Jonathan Kuminga, the Warriors did not come to an agreement on an extension with him this past offseason. Instead, he will be a restricted free agent next summer. He's trying to build up his value. Should the Warriors have done this? If the Clippers, because we thought from the Clippers side, well, they just weren't willing to give him to a Pacific Division rival and all of that. But now it's no, the Clippers were. They just wanted Kuminga or Pods, a pick or two. Now, the value, we talk about this all the time, the value of first-round picks, even if we don't even know, it just says a pick, the value of draft picks can vary wildly depending on what the pick is, protections, all of that. Not all picks are created equal, very far from it. So that's important to know too. But Andrew Wiggins, seen as a bad contract, either Podziemski or Kuminga, plus draft capital. Should the Warriors have pulled the trigger and added Paul George to Steph Curry and Draymond Green?
I mean, depending on what the specifics would have been, I could understand it. And the thing is, I think it's really easy in hindsight to look back at how things are going so far. The Warriors are, I think, the 2 seed. They've been amazing so far, with or without Steph. Didn't really matter. They've been able to win games, and PG is just now making his debut over the last couple of days here. So, like, hindsight being 2020, maybe things have worked out so far for the better. But I think PG would ultimately raise your ceiling. So to answer your question, depending on the specifics of it, like personally, I think they're both really good young players. I feel like Kuminga, he probably deserves more opportunity than he's gotten up to now, despite the fact that his 3-ball hasn't come along. I think that he gives them just a dimension to their team that they don't have a ton of. But yeah, if it's Kuminga with Wiggins and maybe 1 pick in like 2 seconds, okay, like that, I could understand that. But if it's like 2 first-round picks or a pick swap or like a bunch of all that, then I think they're better off as they are.
So I think that on the surface, when you first look at this, you go, what are the Warriors thinking? They've said they don't want to be a normal team. They don't want to just be an okay team. They want to be a great team. They want to give Steph Curry, who's now, 35 years old, they want to give him a chance to win in the final years of his NBA career. However much longer he plays for, they want him to be a Golden State Warrior, and they want him to have a chance to win. And they're willing to make big moves. We know they were in the mix to go try and get Karl Anthony Towns. They were in the mix for other players out there on the market as well. They were poking around different star players. I think they're a team that's a very strong candidate. If there is a big in-season move to be made, I think the Warriors are a strong candidate to be the team that's going to make that move, whether it's perhaps it's a Giannis Antetokounmpo if the Bucks continue to struggle. But if that's the case, if that's their MO, then what are they doing? Here's the opportunity, right? Pull the trigger, add Paul George, off you go. But here's the problem with doing that. If you're the Warriors, you have to look at this from a couple of levels. Number one is that, yes, Andrew Wiggins is a bad contract value-wise in terms of bang for your buck, what he provides. But on the court, is he a negative for the Warriors? No. He was going through some stuff last year, but he's not a negative on the floor for the team. He's getting paid too much, but that doesn't mean that he's not a useful player. Sometimes we mix those two things up. We take a player's value, their bang for their buck, and we turn that into a statement of what the player is on the floor. That's not what Andrew Wiggins is. So you're losing Andrew Wiggins, plus you're losing one of these two young players, plus your future flexibility. And from the Clippers side, I get why they would want this. They don't want Andrew Wiggins. They want future flexibility more. You're going to have to pay them to take Andrew Wiggins. And so I understand from the Clippers side why they'd be asking for that much, but I also understand if you're the Warriors, you can't look at Andrew Wiggins and say, well, you know what? It helps us out so much to get him off the team. No, the math has to be we're losing 2 quality players at least, including a young player that can help us for the future, plus draft capital. And we're not sure if this is the home run move that puts us over the top. I understand Paul George is a big name, but I understand why from the Warriors side of things, you don't do this. I think if it was a few second round picks, maybe you do it, right? Yeah. Or if you're able to specify, which young player it is, maybe that matters. But I understand why from a value proposition, the Warriors just said, you know what? Let's see what we've got in the season, and then we'll see what pops up from there. Maybe another star player becomes available down the road, and Paul George, an aging, often injured guy, maybe this isn't the guy to go all in for. So, on the surface, Donnie, I know that's my rant here, but on the surface, I see people who are saying, well, the Warriors should have done this. I get why they didn't. And that's not to say they're a better team without Paul George. I don't know that they are. But I think that what this may lead to in the coming months will go, oh, man, good thing they didn't do that Paul George trade because now they just went and did this move.
Yeah, regardless of moves, I think you could also look at it from multiple elements too. Like PG, the player, he has difficulties in the playoffs. Sometimes it's pretty well documented. He struggles with health. Steph is actually going to be 37 in about 4 months, so he's a little bit older than you thought.
Older than what I said. He plays so young. Yeah, that's what he's got the baby face.
So, yeah, exactly. He doesn't look it, but he's already 36. I believe I just pulled that up here. And Wiggins is giving them the best production. It's only been like less than 10 games. He's giving them so far the best production that they've had for Wiggins since their championship year. And so I think with Wiggins, after that, he had an injury plagued year, and then he had some off-court stuff happening. So I think with him, it's very easy to get down on him, but they have quietly, just in general, gotten the best version of Wiggins throughout his career. Just him being there for a couple of years, he's giving them that. So I understand it with PG specifically. Also, you'd have to re-up with him for another 4 or 5 years, whatever contract he wound up getting. So, and it's just, I don't know if, while you want to put Steph in the best position, I think right now, immediately, this is better. But like a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't really know. And if it was just solely based on right now, I could understand it. But I think the Warriors are hoping to retain Kuminga or turn him into a better piece than they would otherwise be able to. And so I think that with that being the case, I think you probably just have more value here. And like PG, he's got a high ceiling, but he's not like the type of guy where it's like, I don't know, he's really, really, truly going to push you to another stratosphere. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know that he's the right guy for this team.
So I think that he's an easy fit with a lot of teams, just absolutely. With the style of play. He's an easy fit, but I agree. Is he the guy that puts you over the top? I mean, that's what the Clippers gambled on, and the answer was no. 34 years old. It was the combo of Paul George and Kawhi, but 34 years old. And I thought you bring up a really good point, that it's not just, is Paul George going to help us right now? Because most likely what he's going to be is a negative value contract at some point, whether it's this season or 3 years from now. At some point, he will be a negative value contract because he doesn't project to be the kind of guy that's going to be producing at a high level 4 years from now. And that's exactly what kind of contract he's got.
Player option. Good.
That's Lord. Right. Player option on the last year of the deal. He's 34 right now. So you're talking about his age 38 season. He's got a $56 million player option. So that has to be part of the math for the Warriors. Now, I think this changes significantly if Paul George is under contract for 2 years. Yeah. If he's under contract for 2 years, then maybe if you're the Warriors, you say, you know what, let's go ahead and let's do this. But there's a really good chance, I think, and hopefully not. I hope Paul George stays young. I hope he's healthy. I hope he's killing it at age 38. But there's a really good probability here that the end of this contract does not look so good. And so you have to factor that into. Not only is it we're giving up Wiggins, a guy who's useful on the floor, we're giving up one of our young guys, we're giving up draft capital. Yes, you're getting a guy that can help you win right now, but boy, that contract could flip and be negative into the future and be a real anchor for your club. And so that's another factor here. I think that's actually huge, and a great point by you, Donnie, because if this was a 2-year deal, maybe you're tempted to make it happen. But with it being 4 years, that's what Paul George wanted. That's what he got from the 76ers. It's much more of a tough sell.
Yeah, if it was 2 years, he'd still be on the Clippers right now. Like,
He
wanted that long-term security for sure.
sure.
And that's understandable, for him. And I think for the Warriors, like the way he plays should age well, but regardless of how well it ages, you say he's still an all-star level player, fringe all-star, whatever. I don't know if he's $60 million valuable at that point, because he's paid like a top tier star currently. So I don't know if that's really what you would want to do if you're the Warriors going forward. But the thing is that probably also aligns pretty well with Steph and Draymond, and they would get a few years to try to make that push if they wanted to do that. So who knows what could happen? Maybe a few things break their way and they win another championship. And, if you make that trade hypothetically and you pull that championship off, then all's good, right? So I don't really know, but I do think they're obviously right now off to a great start. I think they've got the 2 timeline thing working pretty well with some younger guys or middle-aged guys there with Steph as well. So I like what they're doing and how their team looks right now.
Yeah, Warriors can't be disappointed right now with their decision. We'll see if this turns into another move middle of the season or not. But everybody let us know. What do you think? Did the Warriors blow it? Did they make a big mistake in not landing Paul George? And also go check out our latest video on Aaron Gordon and what his loss now means for the Denver Nuggets, who I think are in big, big trouble. Go check that out.